Alright lads, a while ago I made a video breaking down my world record pig build. That build won me 143 games in a row, it broke numerous world records such as fastest 4K, blah blah blah. Recently, Behaviour have gone and reworked a lot of perks. It just so happens that some of those perks were in fact in my build, so we're going to rebuild, and for the last 6 weeks or so I've been looking at what would be the best perks to be running, and here we are, this is the video, the new best reworked perks for Pig. And before we continue with the video, if you don't know who I am, allow me to introduce myself. My name is CM Winter, I am the world record Pig main. I have over 2,000 hours in Pig gameplay alone, I've broken 4 world records, I've placed over 35,000 reverse bear traps. I have won 143 games in a row on Pig, I have broken 2 world record speedruns, and I stream every single day on Twitch at twitch.tv/CMWinter. I've made my name playing Pig, showcasing what she can do. We've made plenty of guides if you're interested in having a look, guides on when to place reverse bear trap, the best add-on combos, ambushing, grabbing, feel free to have a look. That's me, CM Winter, the world record Pig main. We shall now get on with the guide. The idea behind the old build was very simple, it's in the old guide but I'll go over it very quickly. Corrupt is for early game, to allow yourself to hopefully get a trap on before the first gen gets done. Save the best for last is for Chaser and a bit of utility, hopefully that will grow to 8 stacks and it will become extremely powerful towards the end of the game. You've got Pop Goes the Weasel, which is very simple, it was the best regression perk in my opinion, and then Tinkerer to synergize with Pop. Tinkerer also had additional synergies, for example, how many people were on a gen, when to put the trap on, and you don't have to crouch as much. That was the overview of the old build. After the rework, every perk in that build has been impacted in one way or another. Pop and Tinkerer have been pretty much gutted. Pop used to do 25% of the entire gen, now it does 20% of current progress. Tinkerer used to give you a notification every time a gen was at 70%, now it only does it one time per gen. We went over that quite quickly, but those two changes are very, very significant. Pop Goes the Weasel is now hugely disadvantaged, and Tinkerer does not give you anywhere near as much information, so we are going to rebuild. Before we leave the introduction, let's just go over one more thing. I'd like to define my motivation behind the builds that I make, and it basically comes down to, I want to have the best chance to beat the best survivors in the worst situations. Pig is undoubtedly one of the worst killers in the game, in my opinion. I really don't think she's that strong, but I don't want that to stop me from having a chance to beat any team. Just think of it like this, right? If the survivors are bad, the killer can always pull back. If you want to chill, and the survivors are bad, you can have some snoop boops, you can chill, you can mess around with the survivors, and you, as the killer, can pull back. Now, if the survivors are good, and the survivors are sweating, and your build isn't prepared, you just lose. That's it, right? You know, we can keep it simple. If you're doing really well and smashing the survivors, you can pull back, let someone go, blah, blah, blah. If the survivors are doing really well, and they've done 3 gens in 1 minute because you brought Dark Devotion, you brought Monstrous Shrine, you cannot do anything. You're not going to be able to put on more perks, right? If you've gone for a funky build, a meme build, you can't put on more perks. You can't just create pressure. However, if you go into a game with a strong build, if you go into a game prepared, if you have your perks ready, your add-ons ready, if you have the right mindset and you want to play however you want to play, that's what I believe in, play how you want to play, then you'll have a chance to win no matter what killer you're playing. That's the definition of my builds. You know, give yourself a chance to win in any situation, and if you want to be chill, be chill. That's keeping it brief. I believe we should be able to play however we want, no matter what side you're on. If you're playing Survivor and you want to sweat, all good. If you're playing Killer and you want to sweat, all good. Survivors do gens fast, Killers kill people fast, tunneling, camping, proxying, do whatever you want. But, as we're going to look at with this build, be sure to go into each game giving yourself as much of a chance as possible. Perk number 1. Some of the perks have been changed, some of them for the worse, some of them for the better. Corrupt is basically exactly where it was, particularly for Pig. Corrupt Intervention will lock 3 gens for 2 minutes. That was what it used to do. Now, it will lock 3 gens for 2 minutes, and if you down someone, Corrupt will end. That's quite significant for a killer like Nurse or Blight who can down people maybe within the first 20 seconds, but Pig is not going to be able to do that. We can all agree that Trapper, Hag, and Demo need time to set up, because they have traps and they have portals and so on and so forth, but I'd argue that Pig falls into this category as well, because you need to be able to put a trap on quite early so it can do something, have some early game pressure. So Corrupt stays in the build. Often, when I stream, live at twitch.tv/CMWinter, starting every day at 10 PM UK, which is 5 PM Eastern, by the way, a lot of people will often say, wow, nice Corrupt value if I down someone in the first 30 seconds, right? People always say that to me. Oh my god, you downed someone in 30 seconds, Corrupt is useless now. That is absolutely wrong, and you've missed the point of Corrupt. Even if you down someone within 30 seconds, Corrupt is still there for two very important reasons. Firstly, it's so that survivors don't spawn on gens. It's almost guaranteed, if not very, very likely, when you run Corrupt, survivors aren't going to spawn on gens. They might spawn very close to one, you might still lose a gen in a minute, but the idea is Corrupt Intervention as a baseline for any build stops survivors spawning on gens. A very quick example, sometimes you don't run Corrupt. If I spawn into the map on Ormond and I spawn at the shack, on the opposite side of the map, in the jungle gym, the survivors will likely spawn all together on a gen, and before I've even gotten over to that side of the map, the gen will be done. With Corrupt Intervention, that won't happen. What will happen, and this is point number 2, is that you're going to be forcing survivors to move around the map, presumably towards the center or main buildings. That's a real simple start, and it stops the gen getting done in 30-40 seconds. Moving on from this, the synergies with Pig, very simple. You want to be able to put a trap on before the first gen gets done. On top of that, Corrupt Intervention will also give you a good chance to crouch. You move at 90% speed while crouching, the survivors move at 100% speed, and when you're standing up you move at 115% speed. So, you move substantially slower while crouched. Corrupt Intervention gives you a chance to get people moving, get some stacks, have a chance to crouch, get a free hit perhaps if you can be sneaky enough, and of course stops them spawning on gens, which is the most important thing. Perk number 2, surprise, is also Save the Best for Last. Save the Best for Last has actually been passively buffed after the perk rework, because along with the perk rework came 3 specific buffs for Killer. The first one was a 10% reduction to successful hit cooldown, which is what Save the Best for Last deals with, as well as 10% decreased distance that survivors get when they are hit by the killer. This is also impactful to Save the Best for Last, and then unrelated is a 10% increased speed boost to breaking pallets and walls. Now, what does Save the Best for Last do? For every survivor you hit, you gain a token up to 8 tokens. Each token offers 5% increased successful hit cooldown. Every time you hit someone, you wipe your blade quicker, right? That's it. This can go up to a total of 40%. However, if you add 10% from the buff, it doesn't automatically go up to 50%. Also, when we talk about numbers, when it's written down, it doesn't really sound that impressive, but it is. It's game-changing, and it will have such a huge impact in almost every single situation in the game. Chasing, a survivor getting to a window, getting to a pallet, capitalizing on poor movement, hook grabs, gen grabs, it affects literally every single part of the game when you're chasing a survivor. Now, I don't encourage using this perk on regular M1 killers. The reason why it's so good on Pig is because she can save stacks, right? Demo, Pig, Nemesis, Deathslinger, they all have secondary attacks, the ambush, the shred, the tentacle, and the gun, that can keep people busy, injure them, put them into deep wound, blah blah blah. Basically, you have a way of injuring the survivor without losing stacks. Perfect. Once you get to about 4 or 5 stacks, you're going to see a very, very large impact. Once again, though, it's technically even better now, but just to break this down, it is not 40% plus 10%. I believe the old wipe speed was 3 seconds. The buff means that it's now down to 2.7 seconds, and then Save the Best for Last will work from there. But I believe that Save the Best for Last isn't additive, it's multiplicative. So, basically, You don't just add 40% onto 2.7, you go 2.7, 5%. Whatever that is, add 5%. Whatever that is, add 5%. And that way it's not 2.7 minus whatever the goddamn 40%, it is 2.75, 2.75. You know, look, I'm not very good, I don't do number very well. Someone in the comments will figure this out, but I do word good, and that word is called diminishing returns, okay? That's basically it. Just bear in mind, the way this game works, you don't take 2 add-ons and then smash them together and take them off of the base value. You do one and then you do the other. It works with perks the same way. Some of it will be different, some of it won't. The numbers in this game don't make sense. Some of the add-ons don't even have the right numbers in them, you might want to know. For example, this isn't even relevant, but John's medical file, it says 6%, it's actually 7% according to the nerds that have told me, so, you know. Okay, we're off track here. Save the Best for Last was the best perk in the old build. And it's even better in the new build. So, what I usually say is, here's another quote for you. Save the Best for Last will not just win you chases, it will win you entire games. I'm not exaggerating. It has won me more matches than any other perk ever. Boom. That's it. Survivors get cocky, survivors get confused, you can capitalize on their overconfidence and their mistakes. It works while carrying, so you can catch people off guard there. It works at small loops, it works at big loops, it works at windows. If someone 99's a gen, you can often hit them and then grab them straight away, and the same goes for hooks. It has genuinely gotten even better. I've even noticed that if a survivor is 6 feet away from the hook, I can hit them, wipe my blade, and grab them before they've even had a chance to unhook. This perk is fantastic. Go get it. 2 quick points before we move on to the new exciting perks for my world record build. Firstly, I believe that Save the Best Last and Corrupt have a nice synergy together. For example, with a slight tweak to a playstyle, maybe a little bit, instead of downing the first person you see, Corrupt and Save can encourage you to transition to other survivors if you find them. That way, you can injure and agitate survivors in a group, while also gaining more stacks and keeping gens locked. If you don't understand what I'm saying, basically I encourage you to spread out your damage, and not just quickly down someone. If you see 2 different people, hit one, and then go for the second person. The first person will run away from the gen, maybe go and heal, maybe go find someone else. That way they're not doing a gen. The second person you can then chase, and now you've got 3 stacks instead of 2, and the gens haven't instantly unlocked. So that's a nice thing to look out for if you can do that. Basically, at the beginning of the game, you want to keep an eye out for both of them. You don't just want to instantly down someone, because then Save the Best for Last and Corrupt Intervention aren't getting the respect that they deserve, and they can do a lot for you if you just be mindful. That's basically it. Second point in regards to a little bit of synergy is that Save the Best for Last is now even more powerful, not because of the buff, but because Endurance is really, really popular right now. Survivors now have 10 seconds of Endurance base kit, right? Survivors now have Off the Record, which is very, very meta, and they also have Dead Hard. So, with all of this in mind, instead of waiting the 10 seconds, instead of waiting the 80 seconds, blah blah blah, if you accidentally hit a Dead Hard, that's fine, because now you've got 1 extra stack, you know? So it's a nice little silver lining to a lot of Endurance, is that Save the Best Last can just feed and feed and feed, and on top of that, if you have 8 stacks, Endurance doesn't really mean anything most of the time. It's just an extra bit of damage you can do. For example, you chase someone to a hook, you hit the unhooker, they unhook, you hit the person who's just been unhooked, they get deep wound and run away, and then by the time you've wiped your blade, the person who's unhooked hasn't gotten anywhere because all their speed went into the unhook, and now you can down them straight away too. Bonus point, which is very, very devious, the unhooker may even have a trap on. Now, I'll let you imagine how fun it is for a survivor to have an active trap and a deep wound to deal with. That's a lot to be juggling. It's very, very mean, and I do encourage it. Perk number 3. Corrupt and Save the Best for Last are staying in. To go along with that, offering somewhat of a hidden synergy is Deadlock. Deadlock is very simple. For every gen that gets completed, the generator with the highest progress will be locked for 30 seconds. That's it. Very, very simple, very useful. It's a roadblock. Once you get over the idea that you're not going to be popping gens, kicking gens, regressing gens, it is very, very useful as a roadblock. Deadlock begins piecing together the theme of this build, which is free automated slowdown. Regression perks remove progress from a gen, and then of no interest to me anymore due to severe nerfs, and you now need to run multiple of them for it to do anything. Previously you just had to run Pop, now you have to run Call of Brine and Overcharge and Eruption and blah blah blah. However, automated definitive slowdown, something that locks a gen, has become very useful for my pig build. I'll break down a few points as to why I like Deadlock. Firstly, quite a small point, is that it offers a little bit of information when survivors finish a gen. You finish a gen gets locked, now you've got some information, boom. On top of this, one of the things that actually made me swap Deadlock for Tinkerer before the rework even happened, is that even when I was downing people within 60 seconds, 45 seconds with Corrupt on, I'd put on a trap, and then 2 Tinkerers would pop anyway. And I'm not even joking. That was very, very common, so I just said, get rid of Tinkerer, we'll put Deadlock in, and that way, if I lose a gen in 45 seconds, if I lose a gen in a minute, and I put my trap on, we've got a trap active, we've got a gen done, we've got a gen locked, I've hooked someone, and now I've got information of exactly where I need to go. Whereas if I was just running Tinkerer, I hook them, and I just lose 2 gens, and that's it. Ultimately, with that, I'm making the point that Deadlock is very, very good for early game. It is a much better option than what I was running before, and that was always a point of concern for me, the early game, but I just pushed it to the side because Pop and Tinkerer was so useful. Early game with Pop and Tinkerer was just not as good as Corrupt and then Deadlock, because the idea is Deadlock stops survivors chaining gens. The final point of synergy that works directly with Pig is that Deadlock works after the fact of completion. So with Pop and Tinkerer, Tinkerer directs you where to go with your Pop Goes the Weasel, and you do the most amount of damage to the most important gen. That means that you're putting traps on, but they're not being activated. With Deadlock, you get a similar style of slowdown, but the slowdown comes after the gen gets activated. So, you're getting 2 for the price of 1, an active trap, and a slowed down gen, and a little bit of information. That's not 2, that's actually 3, but whatever. So, in conclusion, it means that any trap survivor who might happen to be on a gen because their trap isn't active, they become busy. The person that finishes a gen now becomes busy because they've got to go look for something to do. And anyone who was currently on the furthest gen also gets busy. They have to start moving, or they just sit there and do nothing and wait for Deadlock to move on. I think I much prefer Deadlock in this build, as opposed to the information that Tinkerer offered me. It's automated, it stops gen chaining, it gives slight info, it activates traps. Once you get over the concept that your priority isn't kicking gens anymore, it's getting traps and hooks, it feels way better, and it feels like you have much more freedom to chase and spend a little bit more time doing what you want to do, the fun stuff, chasing, annoying survivors, looking at boxes. I feel like Deadlock, especially with perk number 4, just gives you a lot more freedom for the fun stuff. Perk number 4 continues on our theme of automation. The final perk has shifted gears entirely to something I didn't really use before, nor did I like the sound of it. Our 4th perk, No Way Out, is another slowdown perk, but it doesn't relate to generators. Instead, it slows down the doors, and by slowdown I obviously mean it locks the doors. For each unique survivor that is hooked, you will gain a token, and each token is worth 12 seconds of the door being locked. No Way Out also has a base 12 seconds, so the maximum time that each door can be locked as soon as a survivor touches it is 60 seconds. You gain a loud notification when a survivor touches the door, and it is only active as soon as someone touches the door. So, if they do the gens and start hiding, if they do the gens and come to the hook, you've still got No Way Out to play with. It is a very, very good slowdown tool, however, it can be quite hard to capitalize on. We have Deadlock to stop the gens, but nothing to slow them down. So, with that being said, the gens getting done is an inevitability. No Way Out seems like the best case scenario, especially with Save the Best for Last, because we've got more stacks throughout the game and we've got more time to utilize those stacks. And any active traps might extend the slowdown that we have going into the endgame. Personally, I believe that No Way Out is the loosest perk in this build, right? It's not weak, and even if you get 0 hooks, it will do what it's supposed to, but it's the only perk in this build that has the chance to do nothing, right? And by that I mean, sometimes you go to the end game, and if you're not in a chase, and if everyone's fully healed, and you don't know where anyone is, you won't be able to catch anyone. You won't be able to find anyone because everyone goes into hiding once they touch the door and they realize it's locked. That's just how it is sometimes. It can't always be airtight, but most of the time, this perk will offer you several benefits, and once again, it fits with the theme of the build, which is automated slowdown. What does automated slowdown mean? It means automatic slowdown. Something that's going to happen naturally just by you playing the game. You load in, Corrupt Intervention is active, you hook people, No Way Out is filling up, a gen gets done, Deadlock locks the gen. Automated slowdown. Now, I'm not trying to beat on No Way Out. No Way Out has way more advantages than it does disadvantages, and it's in my build for a reason. I just wanted to get it out there that it is the loosest perk. Let's stop being mean to No Way Out and look at some of the really nice situations it can offer us. Number 1, really simple. You close the hatch, and it's almost guaranteed the last survivor is not getting the door. If you have 3 or 4 stacks of No Way Out, it's basically a guarantee they're not going to get out the door if you close the hatch. Boom, that's number 1. Number 2, if you kill someone as the exit gates are getting powered, without No Way Out, you've got no time, and they will just escape. You don't have time to down someone. Like, imagine you hit someone, the last gen gets done, you down them, you pick them up, you hook them, you run to the door's open. With No Way Out, if you kill someone as the last gen gets done, that is almost the perfect situation. Because now you go into the end game with a kill, and you know exactly where to go. You're going to the door, or you're going to the gen, which is a point of interest. And if you get there at the same time as them, perfect. Everything lines up beautifully. Now, the third point is a little bit dirty. If you're at a point where there's 1 or 2 gens left, you can take our 3rd and 4th perk, and you can utilize them together in a very, very mean way. Let's break this down. You take Deadlock, you take No Way Out, let's smash them together and see what kind of situation we can work with. There's 2 gens left, and let's say the game's going a bit rough. But, you've got 4 stacks of No Way Out, and you've got a few stacks of Save the Best for Last. You can use these with Deadlock to set yourself up for a very strong endgame. Instead of pressuring the gens, which you know you can't stop, there's 2 left, they're on different sides of the map, you know one of them's 80%, there's no point pressuring the gens. You might even argue there's no point chasing hook states by going around hooking people. Instead, you can choose to pressure the hook. Some people call this camping. I'm more of an educated intellectual, so I call it pressuring the hook, if you know what I'm saying. With our perks in mind, we understand that they cannot chain those 2 gens because of Deadlock. So, you have the time it takes them to do one of those 2 gens, and the time that Deadlock offers you to force your sacrifice, which you have on the hook. I don't know if I explained in this situation you have someone on the hook. Instead of going the gens, you stay by the hook, and you take all the time that you know you have, the gen being done, the deadlock, and then they have to do the other gen, and you force a kill. Now, let's say you force a kill as the last gen gets done. Now you've got no way out to play with. But there's a second branch here which is also really good. If you're at the hook, one person's on the hook, and the other 3 survivors are on 2 separate gens, one person finishes their gen, they come to the hook, the other gen gets locked. What are they going to do? Maybe they come to the hook as well. Now everyone's busy, everyone is agitated. This is quite a messy explanation, but the idea is you can use No Way Out and Deadlock to force a kill going into an endgame that you know is stacked in your favour. Pig will have 1 killed, 4 stacks of No Way Out, Deadlock to prepare themselves, and their stacks of Save the Best for Last, and potentially active bear traps. This gives her the chance to have a very, very strong entrance into the endgame. Now remember, endgame, especially Pig's endgame, with No Way Out, with the traps flying around, with gens getting done, quickly moving into the endgame, it is absolute randomness and very difficult to capitalize on without information. So it doesn't always go your way, but the idea is, without pop, with gens going as fast as they always do, No Way Out and Deadlock, as a last stop, a last ditch effort, are very good for going into your endgame. I very much like this synergy. Those are our 4 perks. Let's just quickly go over what they do. Corrupt remains for the early game, with no real changes for Pig besides an encouragement of sometimes prioritizing stacks over a very quick down. Save the Best for Last now offers even more value. It can be used for closing gaps, especially with that minus 10% survivor hit distance, tackling endurance, particularly on trap survivors, and defending hooks. Deadlock is in for a slight early game synergy with Corrupt, as well as less focus on regression, and more focus on a slowdown that can also activate traps. Deadlock is now in, arguably instead of Tinkerer. It offers a slight early game synergy with Corrupt, as well as less focus on regression, activating more traps, but still offering reliable automated slowdown. It allows you to have more fun for chases, have a bit more freedom, and stop survivors from chaining gens together. No Way Out is of course the more subjective of the 4 perks. Arguably, as I said, Endgame Pig is the culmination of everything wrong with the Pig's randomness, so it can be hard to wrangle. Though, once again, No Way Out, Save the Best for Last, traps, and a sacrifice towards the end of the game can be ingredients for a really powerful endgame. Most importantly, however, as we mentioned, is No Way Out's direct synergy with Deadlock going into the endgame. Often, it will allow you to take the executive decision to brutally sacrifice someone when there's 1 or 2 gens left, knowing that even if they come to the hook, there's nothing they can do about it. We've switched from regression to slowdown. There's a few other options if you don't have the perks. There's no other options for me. This is the build I will run, and I'll run this until they change them again. But ultimately, that is my playstyle. My original build won me 143 games in a row. I play to sweat, I play to win, I play with one of the worst killers in the game to go full hog, if you know what I'm saying. Hog, get it? Like a pig, yep, good one. Yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, so that's the build, guys. I stream every day, as I said numerous times throughout this video. I stream live on Twitch. The link is in the description, in the comments, or it's on the screen right now. I start at 10 PM UK, which is 5 PM Eastern. I also upload to YouTube every other day, so if you're interested, leave a follow, leave a subscribe, leave a comment. I appreciate you chilling. This video has definitely taken a bit longer to break out than I wanted to. However, I'm quite glad I did wait because the rework came out of the mid-chapter, and then 6 weeks later we have the Resident Evil update. I've spent that 6 weeks looking at different perks and different ways that everything synergizes with one another. For example, I thought Jolt would be way better. I initially thought Overcharging Call of Brine was going to be it, but they nerfed that. And then, for example, they even buffed BT, and I've seen that Dead Hard is way more common than I thought it would be. So, things change. This is the build. When someone comes in and says, what's your build, what's the explanation, this is where I'll send them. Check out the Twitch. Subscribe to the YouTube. I'm here every day, boys. I'm on the YouTube, I'm on the Discord, I'm on the Twitch. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you all, and we shall see you soon, boys.